One of the most wretched haunted house stories is from the year 1912. And what makes the story so wretched is that the story is true. On June 10th, 1912, Josiah and Sarah Moore were stabbed to death inside of their home in Villisca, Iowa. It was just like any night, and both Sarah and Josiah were in the house with their 4 children and 2 friends who were spending the night. Unfortunately, they were all killed. To this day, the crime remains a mystery. Nobody really knows who killed them, what killed them, and why. Were they just a random target, or was there some reason? No matter what reason, there was no justifying the horrible murders that took place inside the Moore home on that horrifying night back in June 10th, 1912. The Moore's home is considered to be one of the most haunted houses in the United States of America. But just like most paranormal experiences that happened in certain places and murders and hauntings, there are always certain people drawn to them places. People pay $400 to stay for one night inside the Moore home. There have been paranormal tours, but they have been cut short by children's voices, falling lamps, moving ladders, and flying objects, says the Villisca Axe Murder House website. One of the worst events that had happened in the house since the murders was when a paranormal investigator stabbed himself after spending the night. As the Villisca Axe Murder House website states, skeptics have left believers. Hello, my name is Frank. I have a story to tell you about what happened to me one Halloween night. Halloween is one of my favourite times of the year. I love the costumes, the spooky stories told about it, and the horror movies on TV, etc. But most of all, I love trick-or-treating. One Halloween night stood out, much more than any other one. So let me tell you what happened that very, very scary Halloween night while me and my friends were trick-or-treating. Me and my friends were just chilling in my house on Halloween, playing computer games. We were enjoying playing the games, but decided we needed more fun, so wanted to go trick-or-treating. The problem was we had no costumes, but we had enough pocket money between us to buy something cheap in the store. We bought our costumes and decided to trick-or-treat around my friend's neighbourhood. There surprisingly wasn't that many other trick-or-treaters on the street. We took this as a good thing because it could have meant more candy for us. Hopefully. We knocked on one door and a nice lady greeted us with a smile and gave us lots of candy. I was so happy we decided to go trick-or-treating after all. When we came to the end of the street, there was this really creepy old house that my friends dared me to go knock on. I didn't want to appear a scaredy cat, so I walked up to the door and knocked on it. I could hear something from inside, and then the door opened a little bit, and as I could hear it, it reminded me of a horror movie as I could hear the door creak. There were cobwebs all over the hall, and I thought, wow, they sure went overboard for Halloween. Then I got a start when I saw a black figure. They seemed to have some really creepy outfit on. They said in a weird voice, "I have lots of candy. You and your friends come in and dig in. I have lots of candy. You and your friends come in and dig in. I found it so weird, I just turned around and ran. My friends laughed at me and said, "Geez, did you see a ghost or something?" I told them that person living there is so weird. They were asking me to get all of you to come in and eat candy. They looked strangely at me. I wondered why. One of my friends said, "I thought you didn't know that story. I asked you before, did you hear any stories about any house in my neighbourhood, and you told me no." I said, "What story?" My friend said, "You're kidding about someone being inside there, right?" I said, "No, of course not. I saw them and heard them." My friend said, "That house has been abandoned for years. Legend has it that a group of kids trick-or-treating one night were asked to eat candy at the door, and they were all poisoned." Susan loved riding her horse around the countryside and also took part in equestrian events. She loved the feeling of the air run through her hair as she felt free as a bird. There was a silly story going around her town about a phantom horse. It's been around for years. The story is there was meant to be this horse that has bright red eyes and was roaming through the fields, stuck between this world and the next. The horse was meant to have been killed during a race and was looking for a girl to take its owner's place. Needless to say, no one she knew has ever came across this so-called phantom horse. But as sinister as that sounds, that wasn't what bothered her. It started just last week. Susan received a nasty phone call. She didn't speak, she just listened because it was so weird. There was a weird voice spoke that said, "Hello, Susan. I would like to become friends with you." She didn't even ask who it was and just hung up. Then the next day, another call came. "Hello, Susan. Why are you playing hard to get? I just want to be friends with you." She didn't bother tell her friends yet, and she suspected maybe it was them who was just playing a trick on her. But it was on a Friday night Susan really got frightened about what was happening. The phone rang, and the weird voice on the other end said, "Susan, you are really annoying me. I told you I just wanted to be friends. I am losing my patience." Susan felt a shiver run up her and turned the phone off. She told her friends the next day in school. They told her to go to the police. That night, when Susan finally had the courage to turn her phone back on, there were loads of messages. 1. "Susan, I told you I just wanted to be friends. Now you have really annoyed me by your rejection." 2. "Susan, why is it you won't answer my phone?" 3. "Susan, I am very angry." 4. "Susan, meet me in the horse riding club by the stables at 3 tomorrow." This was it. Susan finally had a plan. She rang her best friend Lucy to tell the others to hide back in the trees while she met her stalker, and they would pounce out and keep him safe until the police arrived. Or better yet, she thought, have the police there wait with her friends. When the time came, Susan walked to the stables, knowing her friends and the police were watching from the trees. She saw some movement over by a horse box. Then she panicked when she saw a black figure come from around it and push her in. Her friends heard her scream and ran up to the horse box. But the worst was to come when they opened it. There was no sign of Susan, and she was never ever to be seen again. People have put it down to the phantom horse, because there was no way out that they would not have seen her, so she must have disappeared. Some nights people have said they had heard a girl crying in the woods, and they had put it down to Susan caught between this world and the next, with the phantom horse that finally found the girl to replace his owner. Tim lives in a country town in Texas and loves driving his pickup truck, but for years and years he knew not to stop outside this certain cornfield. The field seemed to stretch for miles and miles, and he dreaded the day he would run out of fuel if he had no choice in the matter to stop. When he drove past the cornfield, he tried not to look into it, as if that would stop anything strange from happening. But he knew that if he didn't stop, then nothing should happen. The worst about this story is no one said actually what would happen if you did stop, but his imagination was running wild any time he had to drive past it. There were a few stories about the field, and different things happening different folk, but he didn't really dwell on them, and pretended at least to not believe them. But one night during October, he had to make a pickup for his job, and had to drive past the field. He no doubt wasn't looking forward to it, but it was his job, his livelihood. He had the gas checked, and it was full, so there would be no problem there. While he was driving his pickup truck past the cornfield, he noticed something up ahead. He hoped it was nothing sinister. As he drove closer, he realized there was a car crashed on the road with 3 people lying in pools of blood near it. But when he looked out the window, he realized one person was alive looking up at him, no doubt pleading with him to stop and help them. He felt awful passing the person and others, but knew he couldn't stop. He didn't want to stop, so he drove on. As he looked in the truck mirror, he could see the 3 people standing on the road, looking at his truck. He froze in fear and pressed the gas pedal and drove faster and faster, but the cornfield seemed to go on and on even more than usual. Then all of a sudden, it was like dead people walked out of the cornfield and stood right in front of him on the road. He decided to drive past them. There was no way he was stopping. Then suddenly there was a knock on Tim's door, which woke him out of his dream. When he answered the door, the sheriff was standing on the doorstep and said, "I'm very sorry to break this news to you, Tim, but your daughter unfortunately has been involved in a car accident out by the cornfield. I'm very sorry, but she didn't make it, and 2 of her friends were in the car also. One has survived." Tim couldn't believe what he was hearing and was in a daze. The sheriff said, "Tim, are you okay?" Tim was wondering, was this still a dream? Then he felt drowsy and looked up. He was still on the road, near the cornfield. He checked the mirror and looked behind him, hoping this was still a dream. He walked back to see who the dead people on the road were, and he looked down at himself, his daughter, and his daughter's friend. He then realized he was dead. It was a nice summer's night in July, and Adam was walking down a nice quiet country road near his house when he suddenly heard a noise. He stopped and tried to see where it was coming from. Suddenly he spotted an elderly woman right in front of him. He wondered how he hadn't seen her before. Adam asked, "Are you okay?" The lady spoke. I am so sad, young man. You see, my husband died just last week, and I miss him so much. We were so united, and him dying has left me with such a void. I sometimes wake up thinking he is standing at the bottom of my bed smiling, but then he just fades away. Oh, I'm sorry to be loading all my problems on you, young man. Adam said, are you sure you're okay to get home? If you like, I can walk with you. And don't worry, I don't mind hearing people's problems. Also, I am so sorry to hear about your husband. Is there any way I can help you in anything? The lady smiled a warm smile at Adam and said, oh dear no, young man, I'm okay. I'm just a silly old woman, but if you like, you can walk me home. I just live down the road. Adam and the lady walked down the road, and about 10 minutes later they came to a house, which was the lady's. The lady said, oh my dear lord, I forgot to even tell you, my name is Mary. Would you like to come in for a cup of tea or coffee? It would really cheer me up to have someone to talk to me. All alone in this house, I feel like the walls are closing in around me. Adam agreed and said he would love a cup of tea, and when he walked into the kitchen, he got a start thinking that there was no one in the house, because that is what the lady had just told him. But he saw a man standing right in front of him with a toolbox beside him. Suddenly the man said, okay, here's the deal. You have pieces of wood right here, and I'll give you tools. To you make your own coffin, and if you don't continue to make it, then I'm going to shoot you in different areas. The first will be your foot, the second will be your knee, the third your stomach, the fourth, well, you get my drift. Adam froze in fear. 10 minutes later, Adam had made the coffin, worried what was going to happen next, hoping the worst wouldn't have to happen, where the man would shoot him and put him in the box. Adam said to Mary's husband, I'm not going to get in any coffin, so you might as well shoot me in the head right now. The man was shouting, and about a minute later couldn't take any more and lifted his gun to Adam's head and pulled the trigger. The gun made a clicking sound, and the man cursed himself. There were no bullets in it. Mary stood in fear as Adam took out a gun from his pocket and shot her husband. Adam turned to Mary. Okay, lady, where's my money? Mary gave him the money she promised Adam for killing her husband. She couldn't deal with her serial killer husband anymore, bringing back innocent people to the house to build their own coffin or be tortured. Mark was upset about his wife Louise missing. She was missing for 2 months now, and he had discovered the horrible truth about why she left. Her best friend was murdered. He didn't know why she killed her, but it had to be that, because a few weeks after she disappeared, her best friend's body was found to be beaten to death. Mark visited a therapist once a week, and it gave him some comfort, but never made up for not being with his wife. The therapist asked Mark how he is dealing with things. Mark said, I am just struggling to cope. Me and my wife did everything together and went everywhere together. I miss her so much. She was my rock. Some nights I just lie in bed and cry and wonder what had happened. And now the police are saying she killed her best friend. I just can't take any more of it. It's killing me inside. Sometimes I just wish I was dead. Detective Jackson was working on the missing persons case of Louise, Mark's wife, and also the murder of her best friend Stephanie. He was looking through the police tapes. He knew something was bothering him, but he couldn't put his finger on it. He was going through hours and hours of police footage, hoping he would spot what it was that bothered him about the case. He watched one interview. The police officer put their phone on the table and pressed record. Mark said, "Where is my wife? Is she okay? How do we not know that whoever killed my wife didn't kill her best friend?" The police officer spoke. "Sir, we have some evidence that we need to share with you. That is why you were called in today. We have searched through hours of CCTV footage from your house and the surrounding areas. We had no idea when your wife's friend was murdered, but sir, I am sorry to tell you about this, but we have footage of your wife striking her friend in the head several times with a weapon and continuing to beat her with it until she was dead." Mark shot up in the chair. "What do you mean? How could my wife kill her best friend? She wouldn't harm a fly." The police officer said, "Sir, I know that it's going to be hard to you watch, but you will be able to see the footage yourself. Sometimes it's very hard for us to grasp what people we are close to are capable of, and from my experience, any one of us can be pushed to do extreme things, even murder." Mark spoke loudly. "So that is why my wife is missing? She went on the run after killing her best friend? So that means she's more than likely out there somewhere still alive?" "That's correct, sir." When Mark watched the footage, he felt sick and shocked watching his wife. He loved to do something so crazy. The next appointment with Mark's therapist, he would tell his therapist the shocking news. He had learned his own wife had killed his best friend. A few days later, Mark told his therapist he received an email from his wife Louise. It read, "Hi love, I am so sorry that I had to leave, but you should know by now, I had to murder Stephanie. She was going to kill me first. I'm sorry I can't explain, but please believe me, I didn't want any of this to ever happen, and I am sorry, so sorry, but you can't ever see me again. I just want to tell you, I love you and I am sorry." Mark's therapist was shocked and asked him did he show the police. Mark said yes. They said they were chasing leads, but I don't trust them. I mean, look how much time is lost. They say if someone isn't found within the first 48 hours, then their chances diminish. Mark's counsellor was looking through the email and spotted something very strange up at top. Mark looked at him and asked what's wrong. His therapist said nothing. It's just shocking. Well, everything is wrong about it really, isn't it? It must be awful for you, Mark. That night there was a knock on Mark's door. When he opened it, Detective Jackson was standing on the other side. "Hi, Mark. I have some more details of the case. Can I come in, please?" "Sure, Detective. Did you find Louise?" "I'm afraid not," he said. Suddenly, Mark saw the detective give a strange look behind him. Mark had known what he was looking at and pulled out a gun and shot the detective in his head. Mark was cursing himself that he left Sarah's clothes out in the middle of the kitchen, the ones he used when he dressed up murdering his wife's best friend, to purposely get caught on camera to frame his wife, who he had already killed. He wanted the police to think she was still out there somewhere on the run, so that he wouldn't be a suspect for murder. He wondered what the detective had called for. Mark didn't even want to kill his wife, but knew she was having an affair, but didn't realise who with. But he could see all the emails on her phone and messages from a guy called Romeo Lover. He was even put in her contacts list as Romeo Lover. Suddenly he heard a noise and turned around, wondering what it was. He pointed the gun and didn't realise he was just being paranoid. But now he has to get rid of another body, he was telling himself, the snooping detective. He went out to the back garden and dug a hole to throw the body of the detective in, and would dig it up later to get rid of in a better place. He was too tired to drive to the woods tonight. When the hole was dug, he felt a bang on his head and fell into the hole unconscious. When he woke up, he was staring. Everything was a blur. The therapist's face came into view. "You are going to be buried alive, you bastard. You killed the love of my life. I am Romeo Lover, and I loved her, something you could never do. I suspected you killed her, but never guessed this until you showed me that email. I recognized the IP address. It was very strange, the email from your missing wife coming from your home network. Then I asked Detective Jackson to come out to your house, and well, you just confirmed everything for me. Now it's time to you be buried alive. Mark's therapist threw a shovel full of dirt on him, and more, and more, and more. Mark was too tired and weak to fight it, and a few minutes later died while being buried alive. When he had him buried, he knew what he had to do. Tell the police he arrived at the scene after discovering Louise was in the house, since the emails were using the home network, and by the time he arrived, she had killed the detective and buried him with her husband. He wondered, would this story be plausible? After all, he was Louise's therapist. Would the police put two and two together and realize they were having an affair? He doubted it. Then he smiled. It worked to his advantage. Her husband using her supposedly dead or missing wife's phone. After all, it was her phone used in her home network, which proves she is alive. And she came back to her house to kill her husband, and ended up killing the detective also, and buried them both. The therapist smiled at his idea and said to himself, "This has all come together perfectly." It was a hot summer's day, and three school friends met after 10 years. They were both told during a phone call they had to meet someone for something urgent. They didn't worry if it was some maniac because it was in the middle of the city, outside the mall. So they couldn't really do anything without there being loads of witnesses. When the three men realized they all got the same phone call, they thought it to be a bit weird, wondering who would want to say something urgent to three school friends. It was 2 p.m. and they were meant to be meeting the person at 2, so they expected them any minute. The three friends didn't bother try to catch up on old times. They were more interested in who it was wanted to see them and why. Another 5 minutes passed and no one was turning up. Then suddenly a car rushed up onto the footpath where they were standing and knocked them over, killing them. If they weren't dead instantly, they would be gone before they'd reach the hospital with the speed and impact the car hit the three men with. Passers-by started screaming at the carnage on the road as the car sped by and went up the street, out of sight. Jason, Mike and Sam were bullying Paul in school. This was going on for weeks. Jason said to Paul in a mocking way, "You can't even walk to school, you baby. You have to get your mommy to walk you to school because you're too afraid to walk yourself, you big baby." Paul was 8 and his mom used to walk him to school every day. Paul used to like it, but told his mom eventually that the boys were bullying him. Paul's mom wanted to confront the boys, but Paul pleaded with her not to, as it would only make things a lot worse, he told her. He told his mom he wanted to walk to school on his own. He was 8 and he should be allowed. All this time Paul loved his mom walking him to school, but only pleaded to be able to walk alone to stop the bullying. Paul's mom gave in and allowed him to walk to school. Paul was walking to school, hoping Jason, Mike and Sam would see him and know that he can of course walk to school on his own. He crossed the road to school but didn't see a car, and the car hit Paul and killed him instantly. Paul's mom was inconsolable for weeks, and at the funeral she could see the boys standing across, knowing what Paul was worried about, and that was the reason he wanted to walk to school alone. She told herself, "I'll get my revenge on ye someday. You can guarantee I'll get my revenge." Gypsy Susie Black was a clairvoyant after realizing it years ago from when she was a little girl. She used to know if she got an A in school before she even did the exam. She knew if it was going to rain, or if it was going to be sunny, or if it was going to snow. She had crowds and crowds flock to her to get their future told. All Susie had to do was hold their hand and she would see their future. She was the real deal. One client was delighted with Susie. She had great news to tell her. She said, "Madame, I have looked into my crystal ball and I've great news to tell you. You have great things to look forward to in your future. You were working hard for years to get your business off the ground. Well, I can confirm to you now, your business will be off the ground in only a matter of weeks. And not only that, but it will be very, very successful and bring you in lots and lots of money. And you will be very, very happy doing what you're doing. I am telling you this now in confidence that this is true, and I would like you to come back to me in a few weeks' time or a few months and let me know how your business is doing." The woman smiled, and she was so happy with her reading. But then there was another woman, and Susie would tell her the truth, even though it would tear her apart. She said, "I am very sorry, but your boyfriend is going to lose his life in a month's time. He is working in a very dangerous job. I will not say what job it is, and I will not tell you how he's going to die, but you should know yourself. You are getting danger money from your husband from the job he's doing. I am getting a reading, and I am getting an image of him being a special agent or a detective working a very dangerous case. There's no way you will be able to stop your husband from doing what he's going to do to be killed. I hate bringing you this news, but I'm afraid it is the truth." The woman went home and told her husband, and her husband was working on a very, very dangerous case. One day she found it very strange. She held a client's hand, but didn't feel anything. She just saw fire. She couldn't tell what it meant. The next client was the same. She held her hand, and there was nothing she could feel. Just see fire. The client got angry, not being told anything, but Susie wasn't going to lie. She wasn't going to make up stuff, because she never lied. She knew that there was fire, there was heat, but what did it mean? Susie was worried she lost her psychic powers, but then she realized she hadn't lost any of her powers. She was seeing the future. She heard people scream and went outside and could see fire in the sky. The reason she couldn't read anyone's future was because there was no future, and seconds later, Earth exploded into flames, bringing the end of the world.